towards some flag. Andrew Ballantyne, can you unmute and lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to let Ms. Castaldi in the room. Ms. Castaldi, are you in the room? Ms. Castaldi does not have a microphone operating right now. Oh, there she is. Ms. Castaldi.
Morning.
Good morning. Could you speak up or move the microphone a little closer to you?
Okay, I'll do the best I can. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, yeah, just keep your voice up as you speak.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Castaldi, the commission is ready to go. Please, if you have an opening statement of about 2 minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Well, since we last met, a lot has happened, as we all know, and a lot of my time has been spent trying to create procedures so that the public has access to the courts while still trying to balance my own personal health, the health of my staff, and public health. So it's been actually quite challenging. We have technology, but it wasn't something we used. And so now we've been working pretty hard trying to get things to work. So it's been a very interesting couple months since I met with you before.
Okay, great. And who's up first on Ms. Castaldi? Who had the primary responsibility?
Yes. Sorry about that. I just was trying to unmute it.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Robinson.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Castaldi. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
So, yeah, I read through your packet, and obviously you have just a ton of experience. But my question is, do you have any experience in criminal? And if so, what is it? And if not, because the county court seat is probably most likely going to be a lot of criminal. And if you don't have much criminal, what are you going to do to kind of get up to speed on that?
Okay. Well, I don't have a lot of criminal experience. I'll be honest. I never have practiced in that area. When I was in law school, which was a long time ago, I worked for an appellate judge in Pennsylvania, and that was pretty much the only experience I've had with criminal law. I also did a juvenile justice clinic, but again, that was decades ago. You know, just like anything else that I've done, if you look at my application, I have a varied background, and I have been able to learn and adapt to different areas of law. I actually have been trying to read some cases, some Supreme Court cases, both the United States and Florida. I read the Poole case, trying to become familiar with some of the issues. I also would read all the rules. I observe. I think I told this to you before, that I can observe judges from my office. So I often do that just to try to get a sense of what's going on. My understanding is that this seat may actually end up being a family law seat too. So, you know, that's my experience right now.
Okay. Mr. Pickett.
Hi, Ms. Castaldi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What did you learn, or how was your experience when you had the interview with the governor's office last time? We all know that you made the short list and you interviewed with the governor's office. Talk to us about that experience and what you took away from that.
Okay. Well, it was different, I have to say, although I really did prepare pretty well for it. It was less about my experience, my demeanor, how I handled particular situations than judicial philosophy, frankly. And I had prepared. I expected it to be somewhat the way it was. There were a lot of hypotheticals. There were a lot of questions about statutory interpretation in particular.
And you mentioned that the seat that is opening up now may at least temporarily be a family law assignment. How does your background prepare you to hit the ground running for that?
Well, that's what I've been doing for the last 14 years. And I've been, as you know, I'm a magistrate now, and that 90% of what I do as a magistrate is family law. So I would be able to segue into that position pretty easily, knowing the law and the procedures and so forth. I've been doing, since I opened my own practice in 2006, I've been practicing family law ever since then.
Okay.
Great. Ms. Delgado.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Trying to speak up a little bit. Good morning.
Good morning.
So my question for you is, you mentioned the current COVID landscape presenting some challenges with our courts. So my question is, what have you found the most challenging since we last spoke over the last month or so? And how have you overcome those challenges, or what have you done to try to overcome those challenges?
Okay, so the first thing that happened that I did was on the weekend of March 15th, I think it was, I knew I had Baker Act hearings coming up, and for those hearings, we have to go to the hospitals. And I realized that that probably wasn't going to be either permitted by the hospitals or a good idea, so I contacted the chief judge. It was a Sunday. And, frankly, the magistrates really handle the Baker Acts, and the judges aren't as familiar with what we have to do and the kind of the logistics of things. So she said, contact the hospital. So I immediately contacted who I could contact on a Sunday. And by Tuesday, between me and General Magistrate Erlenbach, we had set up a whole procedure to do the Baker Acts from remotely. And that's been working pretty well. So that was a big deal, really, because we had to coordinate with 3 different hospitals, make sure everybody had the same capacities, figure out how to have the public defender still be able to talk to their clients. The public defender has been going to the hospitals, but everybody else has been remote. So it's actually worked really, really well. Similarly, I had to figure out what to do about Marchman Act hearings. Those hearings, unlike Baker Acts, are held in my courtroom. So that presented a unique problem, especially because it's considered an essential proceeding. So we set up, I had to really work with the court administration and the IT people to set up a separate courtroom to allow the Marchman Act participants to come to this separate courtroom with social distancing and all kinds of cleaning equipment. And they use that courtroom too for criminal arraignments or first appearances. And we marked off X's on the seat so people would be sitting at a certain distance. Honestly, I haven't had any Marchman Act hearings, but we got it all set up to do. Okay. For the family law matters, most of them are not considered essential other than domestic violence injunctions, which I don't have jurisdiction over. But what we did was Judge Siegel and I spent the whole weekend, the next weekend, mostly Judge Siegel did this, but I was helping him throughout the weekend, trying to set up a procedure by which we could afford litigants hearings by remotely. And we set up a procedure for both non-evidentiary and evidentiary hearings where the parties have to be able to use Microsoft Teams, where they have to agree to certain things before we'll even schedule a hearing. They have to limit, everybody has to appear by Microsoft Teams, including the parties. If it's evidentiary, they have to submit their exhibits in advance. If possible, stipulate the facts are limited in time. And they have to sign a stipulation with all of these things in it that we had created. So that took us about 4 or 5 days to do. And honestly, I haven't had very many hearings. People are pretty paralyzed. And so we are spending a lot of our time canceling and rescheduling and trying to encourage at least the cases with attorneys to go ahead and schedule these hearings. I'll go to the courthouse so I can hear them remotely from my home. But it's been very difficult, I'll be honest with you, to get people to actually agree and to do this. I think they're having a hard time with their staff, and everybody's kind of paralyzed. Yeah. It's been a challenge.
Understandably so. It sounds like y'all are doing a lot to implement some workarounds. So thank you for that answer.
You're welcome.
Mr. Dowdy.
Yes. Good morning, Magistrate Castaldi.
Morning.
The last time I saw you, we were at the state attorney's office in a rather contentious meeting among the Brevard County leaders.
Yes, I was there.
Yeah, it was very strange, yes. How is everything going over there during this period with the court system?
Well, that day, we didn't know what we were doing yet. Judge Davidson had drafted a proposed administrative order. And really, I think that day was the day she was trying to gather information from the stakeholders. And based upon that meeting and also a meeting she had with the judges, which I did not attend, she created the very first administrative order that came down, which basically closed down most things, like I said. So, it was an interesting meeting because everybody everybody looks at these things differently, and it really was this whole thing has been very educational to me. I can only imagine what it's like to be in a legislature and try to come to an agreement on anything, because everybody has their own point of view about what the problem is, the scope of the problem, and how to handle it.
Have you made any plans for when we get back to normal as far as your division is concerned?
Well, right now, my assistant and I are trying to reschedule as much as we can. It's a little bit hard for us as magistrates because a lot of our litigants are pro se, and I don't necessarily have the ability to get in touch with everyone. And she's working remotely to, for example, call them. If we have their email addresses, we can email. Otherwise, we're just sending out notices of cancellation and putting her email address and asking them to contact her so we can reschedule. But I'm trying to reschedule everything. It's actually a very tedious process. We've been working on I work all day long every day. Mostly what I'm doing is reviewing cases, figuring out when we can hear them. And
Yes.
my calendar is pretty booked up all the way to the end of the year as it was before this happened. So it's been, I'm probably going to have to, add a lot more hearing time to my already crowded schedule, which is kind of difficult for magistrates because we have to do a lot of writing, but I'm going to have to do what I have to do to try to get these people in, because I had probably just the first 2 weeks when we were from the first administrative order, I had 4 or 5 trials, full day trials. I think one was a 2-day trial. So those trials are going to have to get rescheduled.
Ms. Castaldi, let me move it.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Snedeker.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Great. I reviewed your application last time and this time again, and something stuck out to me that you had over 400 cases of pro bono work, which is amazing. Could you just provide us with some insight as to whether that actually prepared you for being a judge, a county judge in particular, if it did at all, how that experience shaped you in becoming a county judge?
Well, I think it really shaped me more as an attorney, but I do think it provides me with perspective about people's predicaments. And the importance of people having access to the courts. What I found was, when you're doing pro bono work, especially I think in family law in particular, where a lot of times when you're you have a paying client, you have to weigh what you can afford to do in the case. You actually have a lot more leeway in things you can do. It means also a lot more of your time, because you're not really, they're not paying you, so they actually have a different expectation. So I think that as a judge, it helps me to understand people's predicament, not being able to have a lawyer, what if they can get a legal aid attorney, what an advantage it is to them. But they are at a disadvantage without an attorney in a family law case.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fallon, I see you are up and running.
I
You'll
can't
have to unmute though. Not yet. Hang on. All right. I did. Yeah,
I have someone else in control of my computer, so thank you.
okay.
Ms. Castaldi, you mentioned that at the governor's interview that you did not speak about judicial philosophy.
No, we did speak about judicial philosophy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought you said that you had not, that you didn't speak
What
about.
it was all about that, pretty much.
Oh, okay. So we won't talk about that then now. If you could just tell us, thank you for explaining some of the challenges that you've had now. Since the last time you met with us, is there anything that you would like to add that maybe you didn't get the opportunity to tell us?
No, the only thing, and I think I said this when I was answering Mr. Robinson's question, is I do have the ability to adapt. So if I were, to be placed in a criminal division, I feel like I have the ability to adapt and learn pretty quickly. I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not intimidated by that. I'm the first person to tell you I don't know something, but I'm certainly willing to work hard and put in that extra time to learn how a different division would work. So I think that's something I would really like to stress with you all today.
Mr. Bear.
Morning.
Morning.
So your current role is obviously vitally important to the system running well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit fuzzy, but I can.
I'll try to speak closer to the microphone. And your experiences and skill sets seem to, equip you very well for what you do right now. Can you, tell us one way that transitioning to this new position, if you were to be, appointed to it, would work well, with your experience and training, and maybe one way that your current position is better?
Well, I think that I certainly know how to run a courtroom. I know how to deal with the litigants, pro se, and attorneys. I know how to run a trial. One thing as a magistrate, I can't enter orders. So I think sometimes because I have these strange time frames and exceptions periods that I feel a little bit limited on remedies, I'm able to formulate for people. I think I would have a better shot at doing having a better outcome as a judge, because you can enter orders that are more immediate. Without getting into any examples, sometimes the remedy they need is more immediate than what I'm allowed to give them because I can't sign an order. I do deal well with the pro se litigants, and there are a lot of pro se litigants before magistrates. So I do deal with them very well. I get along with them. I understand them. I try to help them feel comfortable in the courtroom.
Mr. Ballantyne, quickly.
Sure. Good morning, Ms. Castaldi. I just have a real quick question. Several of the other questions have touched on, different areas of law that you would be dealing with. One of the different areas, in small claims court, which is within the county court space, a lot of the rules are different or relaxed, because a lot of folks represent themselves, or, there's also a lot of PIP suits. So how would you approach that style of proceeding where the rules, are just vastly different than what you have now in, the family area?
That's a really good question. It comes up often with magistrates and in family law, because there's a perception that in family law rules are looser, which I don't agree with. Even with pro se litigants, I have to weigh very carefully their, ability to present their case in addition, while at the same time applying the rules. So I think I have a good skill set in that regard because I'm used to it. The pro se litigants still have to comply with the rules, but I understand that they may not be familiar with them, and so I try to make sure that they understand what they are, to the extent I'm not giving them legal advice. So I think I have a good skill set that would adapt to small claims courts.
Ms. Magistrate, we have about a minute if you want to do a very quick summary or not.
You know, I think that I know I've looked at the list of people. There are some, I don't know everyone on the list, but there's some very qualified people for this job. I think I am a good fit for this county judge position, given my experience. I have a varied experience. I can adapt. I have good skills with regard to running a courtroom and a docket. I have good relationships with the clerks, with the deputies, with the other judges. So I feel like I am the transition from me being a magistrate to a county court judge would be very smooth.
Great.
And I really do appreciate your time, and I hope every one of you is remaining healthy and your families and loved ones are healthy. This is a very tough time, so I appreciate you being able to do that.
Magistrate, and thank you for applying. Have a good day.
All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, for the commission, so